Joe Johnson.
You have Danilo Gallinari, you add Joe Johnson, and you keep Wilson Chandler, which they're doing, and you still have Bill Walker, who was a big surprise this season. The Knicks look good.
So essentially what you're saying is you rather get a Joe Johnson and still build with the youth and maybe take a couple of years for a championship than going out and spending the money and trying to get.
They have all this other money to spend. Yeah, they re-signed David Lee. They get Joe Johnson. They could
how much would
bring
you
in a center. They also signed that guy Earl Barron.
Well, how much would you sign David Lee for? How many years would you lock him up for, and how much would you give him a year?
I think David Lee belongs on the Knicks just for life.
Listen, man,
so I would lock him up.
I think if it's Lee, it's got to be a long-term contract.
And
if it's Lee.
But I say anybody. See, Lee gets a 5-year. I think anybody else gets like a 3-year max.
So I mean, are you talking about like a Bosh or Joe
Johnson?
Right.
And I don't want Chris Bosh. I do not want Chris Bosh. I don't know how many times I could say that. I do not want Chris Bosh. I don't think he hasn't done anything in Toronto, so now he comes to a Knick team with a similar.
But here's the thing. That's the thing. Your argument is he hasn't done anything in Toronto, and you're right. He hasn't done anything.
Right.
However, what he's done in Toronto is more than what David Lee has done in New York.
I see what you're saying. However, when you look at numbers, David Lee hasn't had. Chris Bosh has had more talent put around him than what the Knicks have put around.
Chris Bosh has also had David Lee. Granted, he's gotten better every single year. After his 5th year in the league, he's averaging 20 and 11.
Right.
Chris Bosh has been doing it that whole time.
Right.
When David Lee was averaging 10 and 8, Bosh was already putting up 22.
At the end of the day, I think David Lee, just in the long run, is a better fit on any team, and he moves the ball better than Chris Bosh. He's a better team player. But listen, we got to get off this. We got to get into Larry Brown, the Larry Brown situation. I really want to break that down. We only got a few minutes left, but I just want Larry Brown was asked by Steve Smith on if he's going to continue to coach. This is what Larry Brown had to say about that.
Nobody has had the opportunities I've had. I've been around some of the greatest players ever. I'm in the NBA, which is the finest league there is. Some way, somehow, I want to help this game. And all the things that I was taught, I'd like to pass on to other people. So in 5 years, if my wife lets me, hopefully I'll be doing something like this.
I just like to say that's a crock.
First of all, Larry Brown has been around the block more than an Italian girl during the summertime at the Jersey Shore. Larry Brown, my biggest beef with Larry Brown is, now granted, yes, he has a high basketball IQ, smart coach, but he is not a player's coach. I don't think that he's ever really even cared about any of his teams or any of the guys on his team. Granted, you win the championships with Detroit. Mm-hmm. Then the very next year, you're in the conference finals, and you're already talking about rumors of going to another team.
It's sneaky. It's not good, Larry Brown. You gotta step your game up.
And one thing too. I'm sick and tired of hearing this about Larry Brown. I don't care that he's the only coach that's won an NCAA title and an NBA championship. When you've been around the block like Larry Brown, it's bound to happen.
Why? Let me ask you this: why is Larry Brown's name always coming up during the playoffs? I mean, okay,
because he's a selfish coach.
Granted,
he's all about himself.
I am with you on the fact that he portrays himself as a guy who likes his player. I mean, listen, him and Iverson hated each other as much as they always say, I always had Allen's best interest at heart. No, he didn't.
And essentially, too, Larry Brown, when he came to New York, granted, Stephon Marbury's a head case himself, but he helped contribute to ruining Stephon Marbury's career and ruining that whole
I totally agree with
in
James on that. I think Larry Brown is just a disaster. He turns an organization into his own little world. It has
to be Larry Brown's way or
the highway.
So if
Larry Brown's way or the highway.
Well, how many times these are not Larry Brown players. These are not my type of players. You know what? Why'd you take the damn job anyway? If you really wanted to coach so much, if you were such a great coach, you take the job and you develop them into your players rather than saying, I need Larry Brown players. Screw that.
I think we need a water cooler in here right now. Anybody
if
got
you're
water?
Jordan and Larry Brown expressed his interest to continue to stay with Charlotte, do you allow him to do this? Or as you say, is he just a virus?
The problem is he's been doing this his whole year, so people are going to allow him.
Is he going to affect Wallace's career now? Is he going to affect the Charlotte Bottom? I mean, they made it to the playoffs now. Great. Jordan is now the majority owner of this team. Does Michael Jordan now say to himself and evaluate, this guy is the cancer and we got to get rid of him, or no, this guy took my team to the playoffs
Well,
and I got to
all
keep
right.
him.
Well, we're wrapping up the show. We don't have time. We don't have time to continue this.
Well, we need to get more time.
Well,
then.
you know what? Next week, tune in Sunday. We'll continue the Larry Brown conversation. It's going to be awesome. Remember, tune in 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll catch you next week.
Have a good one.
See you later, guys.